At a first glance, this image might not look like much. It's definitely not beautiful, and it's definitely pixelated. But behind all of that, it does have a lot of power, especially when used in conjunction with AI image generation. In this video, we're specifically going to look at how architects, architectural designers, or students alike can use Stable Diffusion and an extension for it called ControlNet to take their sketches or hand renderings and turn them into images as such. So the question is, what is so special about this image? Why can't we just go to a site like Midjourney or some other free outlet and use our typical text to generate an image? Well, you can get pretty specific with a text prompt, but using this method of ControlNet will allow you to actually make sure that you are more or less getting an image that represents what you yourself envisioned, what you sketched, or what you produced digitally. See, the way that this works is ControlNet is basically identifying the outline of the image that you're uploading. This is important because then the image that it outputs will have the general shape or form of the thing that you drew. Of course, when it comes to architecture, this is important because we're sketching forms and we're focusing on the roof pitches and the placement of objects or fenestration on a facade. So all these things are important. We don't just want to put some text in and generate an image that perhaps is completely different than what we expected in the beginning. So here we are in Stable Diffusion. There's a couple key components that I'm going to point out here in the layout of the UI and what these different components are. So the first thing here is that we have an area up above where we can put in the text prompt. Now, I want you to understand that this is what's going to drive the general vibe of the image. So if you want to have tones of wood and brown colors, or a field of grass in the foreground or trees in the background, this is where you're, kind of driving that home in your text prompt. The image that I have uploaded here, so this is the one that I created using Adobe Illustrator and SketchUp. This image is what's going to be eventually turning into a more refined sort of rendered perspective. So I know that it's sort of longer than it is tall, so therefore the image I want to output is has a longer width than it does a height. If we keep going down, you would have a check like this that you have to unfold. This is where ControlNet lives, and again, this is all under the Text to Image tab in Stable Diffusion. And we would want to enable and check low VRAM, just for good practice. That's what has worked for me anyways. And then the control type I'm using is Canny, although I will also show you what Scribble looks like. And then under here we have the preprocessor set to Canny and the model set to Canny. These are all things that need to be downloaded in a specific way, and you just have to have a little bit of patience to follow along a good YouTube tutorial. So then, once we have all of that, we have control weight. This one's kind of an important one because when you start to decrease this below 1, it will start to stray away from the lines it's identifying. So this means you might have an image that's a little bit more organic, or it just kind of feels different from what you had drawn. So this is good for, coming up with different iterations. If you're still early in a design, you can put down a general idea in your sketch, and then it can have a little bit more freedom in the image that it outputs. And then control mode is, again, kind of determining what is most important to you. Do you want it to be a balanced output? Do you want the prompt up here to be more important? Or do you want the ControlNet, so these lines and edges, to be the driving factor of the output image? Once you have all that, you're ready to go. you will have to click generate, and then it will produce an image. Because my computer is not the strongest in the world, even though it has pretty good hardware, I am going to skip to when an image is generated. So this was a relatively short video, but I wanted to make it clean and concise. I wanted to show that there's this amazing technology that exists right now. And even though when you look at these images a little bit closer, they do kind of start to fall apart. Like from a distance, they look great, but when you start to really zoom in, it loses a lot of quality. I mean, it is nowhere near the quality of a Blender render or an Enscape render or a Lumion render in which someone has taken a lot of time to develop. But it is not at all stupid to think that in the future, possibly even next year, this technology will have gone so much further to the extent that it might be indistinguishable from those programs that I just listed. So going into the future, we don't need to be scared about a tool like this, but we definitely need to stay on top of it. People like you and me need to understand how these things work and what kind of services they offer. How can they help us, and how can they ensure us that we are always in control, that we are the ones who are making an idea and we're simply using different tools in our tool set to push us forward.